The cracks are showing, as I said, and Chuck Schumer lost his cool yesterday when asked a very simple question. You see, Chuck Schumer wants to tell the media, who will gladly run up on his lap and curl up and let Chuck Schumer scratch him behind the ears. The media mostly will gladly repeat the lie that Republicans are now engineering the starvation of American children because they're not funding the SNAP program, EBTs, food stamps. Of course, you know that the reason that there's a funding crisis is because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have refused to fund the government. It's really that simple. So here's Chuck Schumer fielding a question about that. And you tell me, does this seem like a man who is confident, in control, and on the winning side of this argument?
Irrespective of the dispute on whether USDA contingency funds can be used for SNAP benefits.
It is not, wait a minute, excuse me. It is not a dispute. It is fact they can use it, and the Republicans say it.
Okay, but there's, only 5 or 6 billion, and it's not cost $8 billion monthly just to administer. I mean, if anything, it would only last.
It does not cost 5 or 6 billion to administer. There's enough money to start feeding people right away. 6 billion's a lot of money, and they're using it for other things. 20 billion for Argentina, hundreds of millions for Kristi Noem's plane. Who are we kidding here? The bottom line is they can fund it just as in 2019, just as in other shutdowns, for a long period of time.
And they also, if the contingency fund, which is $6 billion, which gets you nearly a month, 3 weeks, runs out, then they can pass Senator Lujan or Senator Hawley's bill, both of which we support. We know that there'll be 60 votes for that. Why aren't they calling it up? They're not calling it up because the House isn't here to pass it. That's the way it works. The House would have to come here. They probably would have to vote on the Epstein files, but they're choosing to let kids go hungry instead of having to vote on the Epstein files. There's no doubt about it. They have been out for 6 weeks on vacation.
Just think, if they have all this money for Argentina and all this money for other things, they have enough money to keep funding SNAP, and they know it. And I just want to say what Lujan said. Johnson just lies. He lied about on immigration, on the undocumented. He's lying about this. He just outright lies, plain and simple. It is not illegal, and his own president has done it.
Okay, so when you're calling on Amy Klobuchar to bail you out because you lost the plot on your talking points, you've got a problem. And he continued to rant and rave here. Take a look.
Yeah, there are occasional talks between Democrats and Republicans on this issue, but our Republican colleagues don't seem to be offering anything different than what their leadership has had so far. We hope that will change. Yes, we are saying the Republicans can fund it now, and they're using these people as hostages. Plain and simple. Next, that's the answer. The answer is they can fund it right now. Okay, right now.
He's angry. Acting like he just ate a raw hamburger off of his own grill. This is Chuck Schumer in his prime, folks. All right, just so you know, this is what the dispute happens to be. The Democrats refused to vote to fund the government. Republicans in the House of Representatives passed a clean continuing resolution. The continuing resolution continues funding the government at the level that it had been funded. No new appropriations, no new budget, no new tax cuts, no new increases or decreases, just maintain the spending. That would be the spending of the last fiscal year. That would be Joe Biden's budget. Joe Biden's budget. And Republicans said, okay, fine, we'll keep funding the government for another couple of months at Joe Biden's budget. They passed that third week of September, well before they ran out of funding and authorization for the government, which happened at midnight, September 30th, October 1st. Democrats in the Senate refused to pass that bill. That's what started all of this. Now, when you refuse to pass the bill that continues funding the government, then suddenly you can't pay for things. Now, you've been able to move some money around here and there. The president moved money out of existing programs in the Pentagon so that our military didn't miss a paycheck the first time they were due one in the middle of October. Also, by the way, these SNAP benefits, why are we just hearing about the SNAP benefits now? The EBTs, the food stamps, why didn't we hear about this early in October? Well, here's something that isn't reported anywhere. They didn't need to put SNAP in danger at the beginning of October and through the month of October because there was newfound money in the federal treasury that they weren't expecting coming from President Trump's tariffs. That's right. The SNAP program has been kept afloat so far during the government shutdown because of the very tariffs that this guy and his party oppose and scream about. So Trump was able to do that. Now we're in day 30 of the shutdown. 14 times Republicans have passed in the Senate or voted to pass in the Senate this continuing resolution to keep funding the government at Biden's budget levels. Democrats continue to refuse. And now you've got Chuck Schumer frothing at the mouth, spitting mad, having a temper tantrum, pounding. Have you noticed he moves his arms both at the same time all the time? Why is that? What is going on with Democrats and their hand gestures, like Gavin Newsom and things like that? It's weird. You got him pounding the podium with both fists at the same time in synchronicity. And why is he angry? He's angry because Donald Trump won't figure out a way to shuffle money in the budget to put a Band-Aid on the bleeding artery that they sliced open with their machete. That's why they slit the throat of the SNAP benefits and every other program that needs to be funded by the federal government. They slit that throat with their machete, and now they're standing there screaming because Donald Trump won't bend over backwards, go out of his way, and put a Band-Aid for what, 7 days, 8 days on the blood spurting out of the artery of the SNAP program. What did you think was going to happen when 14 times you didn't vote to fund the government? Programs start going bankrupt, and you can't keep them afloat. And now he's pissed off that Trump isn't bailing him out. It's like he set fire to a building, and now he's angry that the fireman isn't there yet. This building's going to burn down. Where are you? Hey, I got an idea. How about you don't set the building on fire? You jackass. Chuck Schumer's not the only one angry. I'm not the only one angry. Of all people, the Republican majority leader in the Senate, John Thune, this guy, I wish he got more angry. I wish he showed that, but look at him yesterday. And I'll explain why he's so angry. Everyone's like, why was John Thune so angry? I'll explain in a sec.
Let me just point out, if I might, that we are 29 days into a Democrat shutdown. And the senator from New Mexico was absolutely right. SNAP recipients shouldn't go without food. People should be getting paid in this country. And we've tried to do that 13 times. And you voted no 13 times. This isn't a political game. These are real people's lives that we're talking about. And you all have just figured out, 29 days in, that, there might be some consequences. There are people who run out of money. Yeah, we're 29 days in. And they've done their best to make sure that a lot of these programs are funded. But at some point, the government runs out of money. 13 times people over here voted to fund SNAP. 13 times they voted to fund WIC. My aching back. Finally realized this thing has consequences. Well, you know what? What Democrats are doing here. They're making plans to keep the shutdown going.
All right. So, good. Get angry. We want more anger. Senator Thune, you got to figure out what time it is. It's time to get angry. A little past time, actually. By the way, I'm from Michigan originally. Is there anything more Midwest than your dorky uncle getting angry and saying, my aching back? For those of you who don't speak Midwest, let me translate my aching back to you. When somebody's angry and they yell my aching back, what they mean is, you mother That's what he's saying. But instead, he's a little more disciplined, and he yells, "My aching back." But trust me, as a kid, older relatives yelling that, it was the same on my ears. I knew that there was going to be problems. Why is John Thune so angry? Why is John Thune so angry? Because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have set this bomb. They decided that they were going to go for weeks and weeks saying that we were ripping health care and health insurance away from Americans so that they were going to die in the hospitals, or they wouldn't even get admitted to the hospitals and die on the streets. Of course, those Americans are all illegal immigrants that we didn't encourage Democrat governors to fund with their health insurance, thus driving up costs across the board. Also, yes, health insurance is super expensive. We didn't pass the Affordable Care Act. We didn't pass Obamacare. We didn't screw up the health insurance industry. We didn't say that we should continue subsidizing the health insurance companies with COVID-era subsidies the way Democrats want to continue extending here 5 years after the pandemic. None of that was our doing. But Thune has to endure all of these Democrats going on television and standing in the well of the Senate and doing their press conferences and doing their No Kings rallies, screaming that Republicans are taking health care away from Americans. And that's why the government is shut down, which is an absolute total lie. Now, for the last 5 days, since that message isn't working, now they're saying that we're starving children and taking food off of their table and out of their grocery baskets because SNAP is now unfunded, and it's Republicans' fault. And again, they're voting to fund the government. They're the grown-ups in the room. They're the ones who are actually doing the responsible thing. And you've got Democrats going all over television and Jake Tapper and all these George Stephanopoulos repeating the lie on media. If anyone watches corporate legacy media anymore, repeating the lie that children are going to go without food and it's all Republicans' fault. So yeah, he's a little pissed off. As well he should be. As well you should be. Mike Johnson this morning at his 10 a.m. press conference asked about the rare flash of anger from his counterpart in the Senate and his reaction.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Speaker, you mentioned today that the Senate's going to vote for the 15th time. Senate Democrats are supposedly. The Senate's actually not voting today on the CR to fund the government. Do you agree with Leader Thune's decision to let Democrats sit with this over the weekend? They're not voting today on the CR, so SNAP benefits are going to lapse. They're not taking that vote today.
Well, Leader Thune was pretty upset yesterday. We've all seen the video. Mad John on the floor, and it's appropriate. When we come in here and do these briefings, I can empathize with them because we're happy warriors. I like to come in and have a good time in press conferences and tell you good news and all of that. But this feels very much like in my state, Louisiana is a hurricane state. It's like giving a briefing during a hurricane, a Cat 5 hurricane, right before it hits shores. We put the sandbags around our homes and we board up the windows and we do everything we can to prepare, but we know the real pain is about to hit and we feel helpless in doing anything about it. And that's the same emotion and that we feel here at the podium and when we're on the floor. And Leader Thune let them have it yesterday because they were trying to play games, and we're just fed up with it. He's a very even-tempered, calm guy. I mean, I try to maintain the same demeanor, but it's infuriating to us. I'm not going to second guess his decisions on when they schedule the votes each time, but he's probably about had it with their nonsense. And when they tell him and they thumb their nose at him and give him, and say other things that they like to drop the F-bomb now for fun, for emphasis apparently. When they tell him those things, he probably recognizes it's a futile effort. He realizes they're dug in, and they don't care. They're more afraid of the Marxist, socialist, far left in the party than they are the harm that they're going to cause the American people. That's a fact, and you need to make them try to refute that because they can't. I'm grateful again for our New York colleagues for holding their ground and standing guard as they do, and for being here. Thank you all so much.
There you go. And again, the lie out there that the left, the narrative that they're trying to push forth, I just need you to be equipped with the right response, okay? Because you're going to hear this all the time. Oh, people are going to lose their SNAP benefits. They're going to lose food stamps. They're not going to be able to feed their family, and it's all Republicans' fault. And just respond this way. It's really simple. If Democrats voted with Republicans as Republicans have been voting for the last 6 weeks now, if Democrats joined them in funding the government, would the SNAP benefits be in danger? That's all. Simple yes or no question. And the answer, of course, is no. There'd be no problem if Democrats voted to fund the government. That's just the fact. Oh, yeah, but the Republicans could move money. If you voted to keep the government open, this wouldn't be an issue. Be all taken care of. Oh, but Obamacare and insurance rates, and they're going to... Just answer the question. You're blaming Republicans. Republicans have voted. They're on the record to fund every program in the government at Biden levels. It's Democrats who say no. It's Democrats who say no, and it's because AOC, Bernie Sanders, Zohra Mamdani, and the power base of the Democrat Socialist Party, they're not Democrats anymore. They're the Democrat Socialist Party. They demand this fight. They demand. They say it out loud. No, well, if we did that, we'd lose our leverage. Okay, fine. Listen, that's your political tactic. Fine. Don't be blaming Republicans. You choose to have your leverage, and it's at the expense of children having their basic groceries bills paid for. That's fine. You've made that political calculation. And by the way, that's why you're now officially the Democrat Socialist Party, not the Democrat Party, because that's how socialists think. It's how they get power. That's how communists, when people are feeling good and they're be able to feed themselves and there's prosperity, they never vote to turn their country communist. It only happens when they're feeling pain and suffering. And that's the plan. They want you so upset and suffering so much and so desperate that you'll even vote for a freaking socialist. Because why not? It can't get any worse. And then it does. And then it does. We've seen this movie before. We know how it ends. Strangely, though, the facts are so obviously on Republican side that even the lying hacks in the corporate media have to come to the table and put pressure on Democrats when they try to push lies. Here's a great moment. There's Hakeem Jeffries, again, without the Frito Bandito mustache and the sombrero. I don't like this look nearly as much as the sombrero look, but you do you, Hakeem. Caught in a bald-faced lie here as he continues to say, well, Johnson won't talk to us. Johnson won't come to the table. Johnson won't say anything. Johnson, really? Mike Johnson isn't talking to you? Interesting.
Mike Johnson's not willing to sit down and have a conversation. Y'all did have a phone conversation, I believe you said earlier today. Who initiated that call? Was that you or was that Speaker Johnson?
It was a call from Mike Johnson. It was very brief, and it wasn't a substantive discussion in terms of finding a path forward.
But was he calling to talk about the government shutdown?
I mean, you could say that was in the ballpark, but, it was a private conversation that will remain private. However, nothing meaningful came out of it, again, because Donald Trump has not given Mike Johnson permission to enter into a bipartisan negotiation. Kaitlan, House Republicans have been literally on vacation for the last 5 weeks. They've canceled votes 5 consecutive weeks in a row. They are uninterested in doing anything other than jamming their partisan Republican spending bill down the throats of the American people.
Blah, 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 talking point. He's trying to pivot and change the subject. The point was, he says Mike Johnson won't talk to him. So Kaitlan Collins says, well, wait a minute. Didn't you have a phone conversation with him? Yes, we did have a phone conversation. Well, did you initiate it or did he initiate? Well, he initiated it. Well, did you talk about the government shutdown and a way forward? Well, I guess it was kind of in the ballpark there. So you're lying. We went from Mike Johnson won't talk to me to, oh, okay, we had a conversation. Oh, well, okay, actually, he called me and reached out to me. To, oh, yes, we did talk about the shutdown, but no, it wasn't substantive. Okay, let me translate that for you. It's not a substantive, serious conversation about reopening the government because Mike Johnson isn't close to acquiescing to all of our demands. That's where the Democrats are right now. Let me just reset the table for you in case you missed it, because these are the things you need to say to your liberal brother-in-law at Sunday dinner this weekend, or at the crazy, AOC loving coworker you've got 3 cubicles down. You need to know all of these facts and the reality that's at play here, because the lies are just cascading. We had an election in November. The American people overwhelmingly gave the majority from the Democrats to the Republicans in the Senate. They also retained the majority in the House with the Republicans, and they overwhelmingly gave the White House and the executive branch to Donald Trump and the Republicans in a way that we've never seen in decades. Every single swing state. You know, Obama, when he ran for re-election in 2012, he didn't win every swing state. Romney won some. In fact, Romney took a state that he had won, that Obama had won in 2008. Romney took it in 2012, right? Trump won every single swing state. Never happened before in modern electoral history since Reagan, okay? He won the popular vote. Republican hasn't done that in over 20 years, right? The American people in the election less than a year ago overwhelmingly said, we want the Republicans and we want to follow their path. And now Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and AOC and Bernie Sanders and all of their talking heads in the corporate legacy media who do their job for them, the terms of the negotiation here is Republicans are being unreasonable unless they give Democrats everything that they want. That's their narrative. That we lost the election in every possible way a year ago, and now we should have our way. We should have everything that we demand. Okay. It works, I guess, sometimes, but not lately. American people have woken up to this. They've woken up. They're not woke. They've woken up. More Hakeem Jeffries.
Senator Fetterman has been critical of Dems' opposition to the CR. We're starting to see some cracks in your conference, too.
You may not be able to hear the question. It's Senator Fetterman has been incredibly outspoken against the tactics of the Democrats, which is true. He has multiple interviews where he's just slamming Democrats for the strategy, the tactics, the fact that people are getting harmed and it's Democrats' fault. Say what you will about Fetterman, and I have in the past, but he is in the swingiest of all swing states. He is a Democrat representing Pennsylvania, which is a critically important state, and it is as purple as you're going to get these days. It bounces back and forth from Republican to Democrat all the time. In fact, he won his Senate seat in 2022, and then 2 years later, the next Senate seat that was open went to a Republican, okay? So I think he kind of gets where the middle of America is right now, and he is saying Democrats are screwing the pooch on all of this. So Hakeem Jeffries is asked about that, about, Fetterman is really critical of what you guys are doing. It looks like your coalition is starting to break. Here's Hakeem.
Where Josh Gottenheimer has said that he thinks the deal that Leader Thune has put on the table, which is a vote on an extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits, is a fair deal if you reopen the government. Do you think this shows that there are more cracks on your side than there are on their side?
Let me explain something to you. There are 0 cracks on the Democratic side.
Okay, dude. Dude, Fetterman and a couple of other Democrats have been consistently voting for Republicans in the Senate. And there are more cracks already starting to show. And this guy is trying to sell you, oh, no, we're holding it together. I guess I'll let you decide. I report, you decide. Does that look like a man who is confident and, for that matter, telling you the truth about where things stand with his coalition? Yeah, exactly. Ossoff, Senator Ossoff of Georgia, suddenly is starting to vote with Republicans. Why? Well, because he's the most endangered Democrat running for re-election next year. Suddenly he's voting with Republicans as well. And then there's this C-SPAN, the great bastion of democracy, when they take their calls from listeners and viewers. Here's a Democrat Congresswoman hearing from one of the voters.
Right now, it's the Democrats that are holding up the charade to not fund in past what has been a clean CR. I just want the federal government out of my day-to-day life, and most importantly, they're impacting my wallet.
All right, Mark. Go ahead.
Mark, thank you so much for the call. I know I've been speaking with a lot of my federal workers in Vermont, and I know it's an incredibly challenging time. And we are very concerned, not just about the level of anxiety that this is causing, but also the real dollars and cents issues around not getting paid. And please believe me when I say I do not take that lightly at all.
They don't take it lightly, but they don't do anything. It's the simplest thing in the world for them to alleviate people's suffering and pain and heartache, and that's to vote to keep the government going. And they just refuse to do it. And the reason is because they think they have leverage, they think they've got political influence and power, and they're growing their political base here by continuing to show that they're just fighting. Even if the fight hurts people, it doesn't matter. So here we go, going into the weekend. I thought this would be over by now. But I honestly, I don't think they have a way out. But I'll stand by my prediction here. What is it, Thursday, the 30th? Tomorrow's Halloween. It's going to get spooky. I think that Schumer, what you saw in the video clips that we showed today is Schumer acting like a desperate man, showing his anger, letting it flare up in front of the media. This isn't the sign of someone who's confident with a position. By the way, Thune's anger was very different, if you noticed. His voice wasn't, squeaking or breaking. He wasn't getting shrill and going all falsetto on people. That was righteous anger. Schumer looked like he was desperate and lying, because he was both of those things. Over the weekend, Schumer, I'm going to stand by my prediction, Schumer is going to quietly give the green light for certain moderate, middle of the road-ish, if there is such a thing anymore, Democrats to start speaking out and saying, maybe we need to end this now. Schumer will still hold firm. It's going to look like, these other renegades have gone out and they've formed a little gang of 10. And by the way, to help him save face, Thune will let Susan Collins and Mitch McConnell and Lisa Murkowski and maybe another wishy-washy Republican to go and join with 4 or 5 Democrats so they can have a gang of 10. And they've come up with some resolution that isn't going to be anything other than voting to fund the government, and then have a conversation about Obamacare, which is exactly what Republicans said the last week of September. That's how it's going to end. But right now, Democrats don't see a way out. That's why they continue to bitterly cling on to this destructive policy. And as soon as they work that out and they figure out how to save face and have some kind of talking point that George Stephanopoulos will believe, then they'll be fine. And then we'll be back. But who knows? I'm thinking like a rational person. And this is a party who's about to elect a communist in New York. Go figure.